Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric and Tour de Fleece 2024. Today, I am plying some of my spun fiber. I'm plying it using a center pull ball. This is one single that I've spun up. It's about an ounce of fiber. And I spun it, I let it rest on its bobbin, and then I put it into the center pull ball, and I'm doing a 2-ply from it. And there's discussion about if the twist gets a little off by using a center pull ball. But for the purpose that I'm going to use this fiber for what I'm doing, this is a perfectly acceptable way to make a 2-ply. I thought about splitting my 1-ounce bag of fluff into 2 sections and plying them individually on 2 different bobbins, so that, or not plying, spinning them onto 2 different bobbins so that I could then ply from 2 bobbins. But the downside of that is that I have bobbins that are full, or bobbins that are in use, and you really have to weigh it carefully and spin it carefully in order for the bobbins to match up. And in the end, I might have to do a little bit of a center pull ball, a plying ball to finish up the leftovers. Instead, because this is a very stable fiber, this is a fiber that it doesn't felt to itself the way I've spun it. It's a worsted single. It is smooth. It isn't sticking to itself. It's not a finicky yarn. It's a very, very easy to spin, non-finicky fiber. It is wonderful to do from this center pull ball configuration. So this is what I'm doing. It's so this year's Tour de Fleece, my challenge, and the topic that I decided to talk about today is about making the personal challenges and how the personal challenges are really just that, personal. Depending on if maybe you're spinning with a group that has made some team challenges, some group challenges, that's a little different. But overall, Tour de Fleece, when it says challenge day, when it says what is your goals, Tour de Fleece is personal. Even if you are participating with other people in a group or a team, at the end of the day, it's all about your personal journey, your personal race, you might say. Please pardon any weird noises in the background. One of my cats has the zoomies at the moment. Actually, he's had the zoomies all day, so there's no getting away from cat noises today, I guess. So, Tour de Fleece is about the personal challenge. It's about the personal race. We join teams, we join groups in order to help motivate us, in order to help cheer us on and cheer each other on. Because there is, I forgot to advance. There is a great deal of benefit that comes from doing such an endurance event like this with other people who are excited for you, who will chat with you, who will commiserate with you when you get, as we call it, a flat tire, when your brake band breaks, when your wheel band breaks, when, I had one year, I dropped one of my bobbins and it cracked. And fortunately, it was a clean crack. My husband was able to super glue it back together for me, and I can still use the bobbin. It's nice to have, in an event like this, it's nice to have other people who understand the flat tires, the equipment failures, the bad days. There are sometimes it's just a bad spinning day, or the bad fiber, the tricky fiber. There's a difference between a tricky fiber and sometimes there's just a bad fiber. Maybe it's too compressed. Maybe it has a flaw in it. Maybe it's just something that you just don't like. We all run into that. And it's nice to be able to sit and chat, even virtually, and sometimes in person, It's nice to sit and chat and commiserate and support each other as we go through this big, nearly month-long event. It's a nice time to it's a gathering, you might say. So it's part competition in the sense of competing against your own skills and abilities, because that's really what you're competing against, is yourself. It's also a gathering like the big gatherings of old, when people who lived in very rural areas who didn't get to see each other very often would get together for a county fair or some sort of gathering, event gathering, usually on a yearly or semi-yearly basis. Catch up, share news, meet new people, make connections. That's kind of what Tour de Fleece has become, is the point of it. It's a way for us to gather together in person or virtually and share this experience. The challenges are personal. The challenges are anything from learning how to spin to learning how to do a very intricate technique, maybe putting beads on your yarn. It's a personal challenge. And this year for me, the personal challenge, and this is a challenge actually for many, is spinning every day. Now, in years past, that's never been a challenge for me. I did not have a problem spinning every day. The first year that I did Tour de Fleece, it was a bit of a challenge to spin every day, because that year I had to travel cross country with my daughter during the middle of the Tour de Fleece. And so I ended up with some supported spindles, and my husband, who is a woodworker, was wonderful. He made me some supported spindles and little bowls that I could hold between my knees so that I could spin while my daughter was driving the car. And so I was able to spin every day. But most of the time, it's not a challenge for me to spin every day. This year, though, it is a challenge, because here in the first week of Tour de Fleece, I have, for the first time in 6 years, both of my children visiting at the same time. My daughter is coming down from where she lives in Pennsylvania, and my son has just relocated to a tiny house that we've built in the backyard. My daughter's situation, for those of you that follow me, you know she was in the Peace Corps, and I just spent the much of February, much of March, February going into March, getting her moved to her new home, getting her out of the Peace Corps, getting her transitioned. My son, his transition situation, he's been in the military. His transition situation is a little bit different, a little more complicated, and a little bit more of one that I don't have the ability to share, other than the fact that for those of you that have been watching me, especially since Tour de Fleece last year, the things that caused me to shorten my month of spinning last year have been resolved to a point where I not only get to have both of my children here with me, but we're smiling, we're healthy again. So I wanted to share that. The challenge for me this year is to spin when honestly, and to do Tour de Fleece at all, when honestly, I just want to enjoy having, for a few days with all of us, this time of family. And I'm now in the in the middle, the throes, the excitement of Tour de Fleece was equaled with that same day was the day that my the first day of Tour de Fleece was the same day my son came here to be with my husband and I. We haven't seen him in over a year and a half. And it has been a very, very difficult time for us as a family, as parents of adult children. And so Tour de Fleece, which I love, and spinning, which has always been a therapy for me, and it's something that I do with both my kids. Both of my children are spinners. They both have spinning wheels. They both will, my daughter, she's a little overwhelmed with, still in the new phases of a job. She might not get her spinning wheel out this Tour de Fleece. My son, I suspect, as soon as this video is up, will probably get his spinning wheel out. We've been in the adjustment phase. We have been in the unpacking phase. And so, while I love Tour de Fleece, the challenge this year is to spin every day. And I've been spinning every day. I've been getting my 2 hours of spinning in, because that's what it takes to spin this single, is about 2 hours. And I have been exhausted because, as those of you that also follow me know, I started doing physical therapy for some overuse injuries, some injuries due to falls, etc. in the past, and some that are just due to some of the chronic situations that I have. So I've been doing physical therapy at a physical therapist's office twice a week and doing it at home pretty much every day. And so adding in 2 hours of spinning, I'm exhausted. That's been a challenge. And that's why I want to really have this video dedicated to the challenges of Tour de Fleece. Because I set the challenge. I said, this is how much fiber I want to spin every day. If I didn't meet the challenge, there's no disappointment. There's no criticism of it. Because I know that it's a challenge. And the whole point of the challenge is to try to do something that may just barely be outside of my reach. And that's what I really want to send as the message to all of you that are out there spinning, especially you new spinners. Sometimes the challenges that we make them to challenge ourselves to get to a new level. And sometimes, despite all our efforts, that challenge is just outside of our reach today. So what I'm trying to accomplish in Tour de Fleece right now, these 2 hours a day to get these 21 colors spun and plied, that challenge may just be a little bit out of my reach, but it is within the reach if I change the parameters of the challenge. So I'm working towards that specific challenge of 21 fibers in 23 days of Tour de Fleece. But if I don't meet it, well, I've got Ravelinics starting right up after the Olympics. I can say, okay, I'm going to finish that challenge before the Olympics is over. It will carry over into my next phase. Sometimes the challenges that we make ourselves, we might be able to just, in my case, extend the amount of time to meet the challenge, or sometimes we set it aside, work on some technique, and then pick it back up, maybe as simple as changing the fiber we're spinning. So we say, oh, my challenge is to spin this really beautiful merino silk cashmere braid. And you start spinning it and it just feels slippery because it's a combed top, and it feels slippery and you're getting frustrated. Set it aside and practice with an easier fiber, like this Romney. This Romney is a wonderful, wonderful practice fiber. Practice maybe spinning a little thinner, maybe really watching your twist, and then pick up the harder fiber, the challenge fiber, once again, and try again. Sometimes we just have to change the parameters of our challenge. And there is nothing wrong with that. That's actually the best way of tackling these challenges, these events like Tour de Fleece. Because remember, we're not competing against anyone else except for ourselves. And the only way we win in this challenge, in this competition, is by slowing down evaluating our efforts, identifying maybe what we need to improve, what we need to work on, and then starting again. Our frustration level can oftentimes be mitigated, lowered, lessened, simply by changing one of the variables in the process. Maybe it is changing the prep that we're trying. I've had some beautiful braids that have just frustrated me because my hands were too tired, or there was something about the spin that just wasn't working. And so I've taken a beautiful combed top with silk and cashmere merino, and it's so pretty, and I've taken it over to the hand garters and I've made them into roll-logs, and I've spun it like that. Now, you might lose a little bit of that shine because a worsted spin from a top will be smoother and that shine will come through more than if it's a woolen spin, in which you might, with all the air and fluffiness, lose some of that silky shine. But if it is a beautiful fiber, you get to decide. I remember years ago, and I can't remember, I think it was when we were getting ready, I think it was when we were sitting around during the big event that there used to be called Spinzilla. And we were sitting around, we lived in Colorado at the time, and for Spinzilla, on the Saturday of that week of spinning, that monster week of spinning, there was a big gathering at the Denver Art Museum, and we all brought our wheels, and we all sat in this big, huge area in this room. It was wonderful, and we were able to chat and talk with each other, and I was talking to another spinner, and I told the spinner about this beautiful braid of fiber that I had, but every time I tried to spin it, and this is flashback to my early days of spinning, and I was telling her about how I was having some difficulty spinning it, and I didn't enjoy spinning it from this preparation, this top. And I said, is there anything wrong with me carding it and putting it into roll-logs? And the spinner, she looked at me and she said, it's your fiber. Do with it what you want to do. There's no fiber police. There's nothing wrong with taking this beautiful top, this combed top blended with all these exotic fibers. There's nothing wrong with it than turning it into a bunch of roll-logs and spinning it that way. If it gets spun, if you enjoy it, if it gets you a yarn you like to use. And that's the key. It's your yarn. It's your challenge. It's your tour de fleece. It's your event. It's your joy you're seeking, not someone else's. We learn from each other when we get together in these groups. We learn from each other by looking at how other people are doing it, hearing their evaluations of themselves, their comments, their journaling of the day. We learn from each other, but then we take what we've learned and we make it work for ourselves. There might be people who don't want to do a center pull ball. There might be fibers, actually I know there are fibers, that I would be just insane to do from a center pull ball. Now that's not to say I haven't actually tried spinning Angora from a center pull ball, because I have. And it's very grippy. And it is one misstep, one drop of the fiber from disaster. And when that has happened, I've broken off the disaster and started spinning again, because right now I have no breaks. This fiber is spinning really well together, but in other fibers I might get a break, in which case I just overlap a little piece and take up plying again. But when it comes to really tricky fibers like Angora that likes to grip on itself and that is spun very fine, okay, it is a real challenge. Another one is mohair. Mohair just is so cling and grip and all of that. It is an act of frustration, an act of creating frustration to spin it from a center pull ball. This fiber really behaves itself. I've let it rest a couple days. It's spinning quite well. But as I'm getting down to the very last little bit, the very last center, it's starting to collapse in on itself. My finger that I had shoved inside of it has come out, and you're starting to see a little bit of these little yarn barfs coming from the center. And I have to be careful, because if I put too much tension on those yarn barfs, I will get a knot. But if that happens, I just break off the section that is the knot and start again. But I am trying to spin this to share with you this on camera, especially as I get to the center. If I was smart, I'd say, well, okay, that's done for this video, and we'll see you next time type. I would say that. But I'm going to try to get to the center. I'm going to try to spin it all. I'm going to let you see if it becomes a disaster in my hands. So this fiber works for this technique. Other fiber might not. If you've tried this technique and you had frustration, don't hesitate to try it again. Try it with a different fiber. Maybe the fiber was finicky. Maybe there was too much twist in your single. Maybe it hadn't rested enough in between. On that topic, resting is basically, there's a lot of energy that we put into our singles when we spin it. That energy dissipates as it sits on the bobbin, and letting it rest, and it will have that energy dissipate. Now, I don't want to have that energy dissipate too much, because it's helping me understand the twist as I'm, putting it on. If I relax it, it's a fairly relaxed, it's not doing too much of this curly-Q. So I'm going to have a fairly balanced yarn, I hope. But I have done this process with yarn that has rested for years. I might not get as refined a finished product as if I had used that yarn earlier. But am I going to get a usable yarn? Yeah. The only time it becomes an issue is when I first started spinning, and I have a bunch of bobbins from that time, because I'd had a big project and I had some leftovers, and they're on some, they're not on they've been wound onto storage bobbins for weaving. And back when I first started, I was, there wasn't as many videos out. We certainly didn't have as much YouTube back then to help. And I got it into my mind that I wanted to spin opposite of what I'm currently spinning. Right now I'm plying, but when I'm spinning a single, I'm going clockwise. And so my plying is counterclockwise. But back then, for some reason, I really felt like I wanted to spin my single counterclockwise and then ply it clockwise. And that is a legitimate way of spinning. That's actually a good way of spinning if you're spinning for crochet versus knitting, okay? But I forgot that's what I did with these singles. And last year, I think it was the year before, I was spinning up a fiber for Tour de Fleece, and I was using those singles as the plying for a very, very fluffy single that I did. And it was creating a bit of a faux boucle look. And I forgot that my single was spun the wrong direction. And oh my goodness, did I get a very unique yarn. So where I'm going with all this as I finish with my center pull ball, and I usually like to just put a little knot in the end, is if you've tried something and it hasn't been fun, it hasn't worked, set it aside, try something different, and then come back. Whether it's a challenge project that we're doing, whether it's a new fiber we're doing, whether it's just one of those days. If you get frustrated, set it aside and try something different. You will, over time, figure out what you consider your vanilla spin and your vanilla yarn, meaning your basic go-to. You love the fiber, you love the type of wraps per inch, the thickness, the density. You're going to figure out what is your vanilla, your go-to basic relaxing spin. When you figure that out and you try something new and it frustrates you, go and do a small vanilla project. If you're still beginning and you haven't figured out your vanilla yet, and you get frustrated, set it aside and try something different. Maybe prep some more fiber. Give yourself that break. This is our personal challenges. And the biggest challenge of all is finding the joy when we're learning something new, when we're pushing ourselves a little bit harder, when we are out of our comfort zone. Whatever creates that challenge for you, don't forget that it's about finding the joy, not just simply accomplishing the task. So that is my video for this week on Tour de Fleece and the challenge days and the personal challenges that we make every day that we spin, every day that we craft, every day that we live. And that's how I try to go about it. So next week things will be quieter. I don't know what the topic will be. We'll see what comes up. I might have my son spinning with me. My daughter's only here for a few days. In fact, at the time this video is uploaded, she'll probably be on her way home again. If you are out there and you're doing your Tour de Fleece and you have the opportunity that, you're going on vacation or you have trips, business trips or family obligations, remember, Tour de Fleece is about your own personal journey and race. And all of that supports it, doesn't interrupt it. All right, so I hope you've had another good unwinding with fiber and fabric. Until next time, happy spinning.